This series is something I've wanted to do for a long time. I spent about 6 years living in the Bahamas. During that time, I'd spend a lot of time sailing, and I'd be out shooting, of course, this is 15 years ago, so I was shooting film way before digital. And I would be out in the sailboat, and I had an underwater camera, and I would do some diving, and I would take pictures of stuff that was, nice. It was coral and fish, but it was, and I was thinking this would be really neat to start doing some underwater fine art work with people. But one day I was shooting and looking down as I got back in the boat from a dive, and I looked down and I could see the fish just at the surface of the water. And I thought, wow, how beautiful is this? The light was just on a low angle, and I could see this very abstract vision in this surface ripple, and I thought, someday I must try this, with people and do it in a controlled environment. And I totally had forgot about this for a couple of years, and until I was shooting a commercial job, once again in the Bahamas, and we were shooting quite a few days in this complex, and it was a fairly long, intensive shoot. And at the end of it, we were staying where there was this beautiful big pool, and it was nighttime, and we had finished a day of shooting. I was in the pool, and all the lights in the area was off except for the lights in the pool, and the makeup artist I was with had a friend, and she was on the top with her digital camera just taking some pictures, and she came up to me and said, "Oh, you should see this. This is really cool. What I'm seeing underwater." And I thought, yeah, I know. I did some of this on a boat one day, and I thought it was really interesting. And then she showed me the back of her little digital camera, and she said, "Well, what do you think of this?" And I looked and I said, "Oh my God, this is exactly what I wanted to do." So the next day, we had a few extra days in the Bahamas, and we literally set up the next day and to shoot underwater with a camera above the surface. And I got some pretty interesting images. When I came back to Canada a few years after that, we had set up a commercial job and did the same technique. And I was really happy with the work, but it took this huge infrastructure to make it happen. I needed a pool. I needed to be 16, 20 feet above the pool. I needed perfectly flat water, had to be perfectly clear, and it was really almost impossible to find an environment to create this technique until we built this new facility. So 15 years later, I now have a facility that's able to accommodate this, and in this space we've literally built a pool that we can control temperature and the quality of the water, and I can also mount the camera physically, the right distance above, and everything is now in a perfectly controlled studio environment. I think the technique itself, which isn't really that radical, was not very difficult. What I underestimated was how difficult it was to set this thing up, so on a technical level. For me, most of my shooting, I shoot dancers in the air, and even on the cloud busting series, it was difficult, but it didn't take a lot of engineering and thought to come up with the technique to shoot it. In this case, the entire process, almost overwhelmed me at how difficult it was to set this up. The next thing that I underestimated was how difficult it was to get the shot. And usually I'm spending a lot of time to get a single shot. I might spend 2 or 3 hours for one really decent image. Pool shooting has actually, it's almost an order of magnitude. It's almost like we have to do 3 to 4 hour sessions for one single shot. So it's the first time I've actually done a series where I'd have to shoot multiple days to get one single photograph. So it's extremely rewarding when you get that final photograph, and it's just breathtaking and it's beautiful. But it's really rare for me not to have a session where I can be shooting and I know I've got a really good image. Maybe not a world-class image, because that's really rare, but I'll have a really good image. And in this series, I could spend 3 and 4 hours of everybody working very hard and still not have an image, and maybe not even be that close to an image. So that's been extremely frustrating, but also extremely rewarding when it does happen. Every now and then you end up creating an image that has some sense of uniqueness and power and timelessness. And I think for me to be able to create something that's going to live longer than I will, and will maybe inspire someone else like I've been inspired by work that's been created. I think that's one of the things that drives me to do it. But more than anything, I think it's just creating something that's beautiful and something that's strong. And that's really what drives me to create this work. And it's exciting and thrilling for me and rewarding when this happens.
So Amanda, just move the cloth. Yeah, just like that. Perfect. Okay, everybody ready? Okay.